It's not every day that we see a piece of media considered a masterpiece from the moment that it drops, called hot garbage as quickly as a Uzumaki anime adaptation. Most shows take seasons or years for it to drop off, but Uzumaki managed to do it in just one episode. So in this video, I want to talk about how the hell that even happens. But first, we have to look back at how hard it is to adapt Junji Ito into a different medium, especially anime. None of the anime adaptations so far has captured the art style in the same way as they've been laid out on the pages of the manga. The main reason for this is the tight production schedule and budget of anime that forces animators to simplify the art style and favor quantity over quality. And sometimes, worst case, they pick stories that just weren't strong in the first place and then rewrite it into oblivion. It's so common that even fans refer to this as the Junji Ito Adaptation Curse. But then, in 2019, Adult Swim drops a teaser for Uzumaki that shows the beautifully detailed Junji Ito art style in motion and adapts from one of Junji Ito's strongest works. For Junji Ito fans, this seemed like it was going to be the adaptation that finally does Junji Ito justice. The expectations just couldn't be any higher. Even if the 2-minute clip was all we had to go off of, it was guaranteed to be a success as long as it could stick the landing. Along with the teaser, they announced that they were teaming up with Production IG to produce the series, and they were employing Drive as the animation studio. As the senior vice president on air for Adult Swim at the time, Jason DeMarco expressed his excitement to bring the adaptation to the Toonami block. Knowing fully well that to produce a show of this quality, it needed significantly more time and money compared to regular shows, they went into production. Until
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe declared a state of emergency on Tuesday, giving authorities more power to stop its coronavirus outbreak.
The government has asked people to stay where they are to try to stop the infection from spreading.
TV tally, 2,880 people were tested positive nationwide as of 7 p.m. local time on this.
COVID-19 put the development of Uzumaki into chaos. Some of the crew had reportedly lost their loved ones to the pandemic, and the morale to keep working on the show was just never the same. Over the coming years, Adult Swim would announce the release date of the anime, only to follow it up with a delay announcement 3 times. But the delay also caused contracts to change, as articles started to surface about how production was now being handled by Drive and another studio, Akatsuki. While there weren't too many news coming out during the delay period, fans did get a glimpse of the storyboard in 2020 on Twitter that reassured them of the quality that they can expect from the anime. As a Christmas surprise in 2021, the official Twitter account also released a 2-minute behind-the-scene footage of Junji Ito coming in to voice a character for the show, and we saw how much the cast and crew respects his work and thanks him for being part of the anime. But then, we got news that the restructure went beyond just the production logistics, but also onto the anime itself. On June 2021, the series director Hiroshi Nagahama got on camera and spoke about the delay more specifically. He mentions that this show uses twice as much staff as a normal production, and that they needed to restructure their plan to bring the show to life. And midway through, they included a clip of the first scene of the anime. And then the director asked the fans for more patience as they bring this anime to life. Another year went by before it was announced that the anime would go on an indefinite delay. In a statement released on social media, they said that they needed more time in order to replicate the quality of the intricate designs and detailed line work of the manga. They said that a firm premiere date will be announced once we are confident this adaptation is as good as we know it can be. Meanwhile, it's also important to look at Adult Swim's parent company, Warner Bros. Discovery, which was undergoing internal changes. Word was on the street that the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, David Zaslav, was making budget cuts to cope with the losses that they experienced during the pandemic. Cartoon Network shows were randomly disappearing from the Max streaming service, and it was speculated that this was Zaslav's potential attempt to streamline the studio's finances by defunding its animation division. The fate of Uzumaki had a lot going against them, and its success started to become uncertain. At San Diego Comic-Con 2024, Adult Swim hosted its panel to announce new projects coming out over the years. Since people had lost hope on the Uzumaki adaptation ever seeing the light of day, the announcement of Uzumaki came as a complete surprise. And what was crazier was that it came with an actual release date. The anime was announced as a limited series, with 4 20-minute episodes in total. Some fans were worried that this wouldn't be enough to adapt the full story, but the footage released so far did give fans a reason to trust the production team. This was a valid concern for Uzumaki after all, since it is a dense story. This story about the town, haunted by the curse of the spiral, spans across 20 different chapters and split into 3 distinct volumes that would weave together at the end. Almost every chapter was a crucial setup for the ending, so every piece had to land for the ending to land as well. On June 29, 2024, an article surfaces about the completion of episode 1 of Uzumaki, straight from Junji Ito. He tells the Japan Times that the first of 4 episodes is complete and, quote, lives up to his expectations. After 5 years of wait, the fans were finally going to get a proper taste of Junji Ito's magnum opus on the screen, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. The first episode had the shadings, the black and white style, and the animation to the closest it had ever been to the source material. The internet literally lost its shit because they had managed to stick the landing, and people were ready to celebrate that the Junji Ito anime adaptation curse had been lifted. But then, the second episode aired. Saying that something was off about the second episode is an understatement. The production quality was off so laughably bad that it felt like you were watching a rip-off version of the show. The shading became inconsistent, lines weren't properly cleaned up before delivery, and the animations were just painfully awkward to watch. The editing didn't help either, as some shots lingered on way too long at the bad animation and made the glaring difference in quality even more apparent. While the third episode gradually returned to match that of episode 1 in terms of style, the narrative began to fall apart. The intercut stories started to feel rushed and out of place, with pacing that felt like entire sequences were cut. While there were some good payoffs to the setups in the earlier episodes, they couldn't do the heavy lifting to lift the entire episode out of the hot water that it has put itself in. Meanwhile, episode 4 extends its runtime from the expected 20 minutes to 30 minutes instead, and fits the entirety of the last arc of Uzumaki into one episode. Again, the animation here is mostly on par with episode 1, with a few missteps and janky animations along the way. But the editing was still too weak, and the finale felt like watching a rough cut with sometimes missing sound effects to deliver an impactful finale. This demonstrates the point that I want to make here about why Uzumaki failed. It wasn't just the animation decline, but also the hyper-condensed narrative. Being forced to translate a 650-page manga into 90 minutes just clearly did not give enough time for every story to breathe. That said, some stories did earn its moments, especially early on, like Azami's Spiral Scar, Suichi's mother's Fear of Spiral, and the Pregnant Women saga. Intercutting Suichi's mother's story with other stories worked pretty well for me, as we really do see and feel the slow decline of her mental state, spanning across multiple episodes. But that pacing doesn't work if the other stories don't also gradually take their time across the episodes. The consistency in the pacing of this anime would have made this adaptation shine, even if the animation wasn't always on top of its game. So now knowing the problems with this adaptation, let's see if we can figure out how it is that we got here. Comparing scenes shown in earlier announcements in 2019 and even 2021 to the finished product, we can see that the first episode has been reworked multiple times with its animations and shots. So it is likely that a lot of the budget went towards perfecting the first episode, with the rest not having as much as a result. Looking at the credits for the episodes, it becomes clear that there was a lot more going on behind the scenes with its production. As mentioned before, the anime was originally announced with Drive as its main animation studio, but it seems that their name has been completely removed from the actual credits. Instead, Fugaku is credited for episodes 1 and 4, and Akatsuki was credited for episodes 2 and 3, the ones where the cracks of this show came through the most. What's worse is that the directors also switched. Hiroshi Nakahama is credited for directing episode 1, and then Yuji Moriyama takes over episodes 2 and 3, while adding a role of episodic director to the credits. Episode 4 is even more of a mess, as 3 people are now given the credits of episodic director with no actual director title credited. The fans who poked around the credits knew that something wasn't right and tried to make sense of it on the internet. Eventually, the producer, Jason DeMarco, would post to Blue Sky stating that they were anticipating the negative responses with Uzumaki before deleting it entirely. In the now deleted post, Jason DeMarco discusses the options that they had because they were, quote, screwed over. It was either A, not finish it and air nothing and call it a loss, B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete, or C, run all 4, warts and all, out of the respect for the hard work. And we saw that they chose option C. He does claim that there is someone to blame, but he doesn't specify who, and he did state that he doesn't even know if releasing all the episodes was even the right choice at the end of the day.
It makes sense that he would keep these posts vague since his career is already on the line by directly engaging in this conversation. As disappointing as the final result was, it is at least good to know that the crew did this out of the respect and adoration for the original work and not as just a soulless cash grab. In this clip of Junji Ito coming in to record for a character in the anime, we can see how excited the crew was, and how the director recounts that the cast would read the source material before coming into the booth to give the most authentic performances to their characters. It really does seem that the production had good intentions, even if they couldn't bring that vision across. While Uzumaki was set up to be the anime to bring justice to Junji Ito's work, it still fell victim to the Junji Ito curse. The anime adaptation had so much potential, which was ruined by both external and internal factors that led to a messy reorganization of the production and its crew. When met with an ultimatum of what to do with the show that had been in development for over 5 years, and they were running out of gas, the producers let it see the light of day so that the hard work on the sequences that worked could at least be appreciated by the world. Now, even if this anime didn't break the Junji Ito curse, hopefully it redirects people to his manga like the other adaptations did for me. Because even though this isn't the perfect adaptation, it still keeps Junji Ito's name and work in today's conversations, which keeps his legacy alive. While the answer of who is to blame might not be as clear-cut as you thought it'd be, I hope that this video showed the different factors that were at play which doomed the potential of the anime. With every failed adaptation redirecting to Junji Ito's original manga, it creates an opportunity for someone else to become a fan of his work and look forward to the new attempts of adapting his work. It may be a sick and twisted cycle, but one day, hopefully, an adaptation will break out of the bleak spiral of the Junji Ito Adaptation Curse, because the first episode of Uzumaki proves that it is possible.